whenever I take the time to quiet my mind and listen within. I always appreciate and notice that subtle and yet profound shift into that inner peacefulness. Not that it's without any kind of thoughts or impulses, but just that there is a quietening, there's a softening and a relaxing. And I very much appreciate that. Because in that, it's easier to discern my own self from the noise of the world. And I think this is a very important thing to learn, to practice. Especially since, as we practice it, it becomes easier and more natural. So today I'm going to attempt to use some pre-decided topic along with my spontaneous expression and intuitive thoughts, intuitive expression. So my intention is to listen to a deeper guidance from within. Not just be intellectual about it, but combining my intellect and my intuition. I think this is the balanced approach that we need to learn how to use. It is our innate capacity. So the topic that I want to discuss and express my opinions on, and even to evolve them within this present unfolding, this captured moment, is what I'll call personal ethos. And I feel like this is something that has been very important for me through my life. And I think it's because I observed a lot of people behaving in a way that I didn't feel was ethical. That was just an observation and feeling when I was young. And as I worked through being an adolescent and a young adult, I felt great conflict with the world and society. I kind of took my personal ethos for granted. And I think this is normal, that we just live inside of our values, and then we judge the world according to that. I think really the purpose of self-awareness is refining your own personal ethos and sense of morality. That is one's responsibility as an adult. I think that there would be others who would suggest that being adult is about conforming to a collective ethos. And that's not my opinion. I think that the path to the future that's a good one is conscious evolution. And that means each person, each adult, taking responsibility for their own life and developing the capacity for self-reflection and discernment. Such people will be, in varying degrees, immune to propaganda and manipulation. I think this is a very good thing. Today, I see that there's a lot of people that are rebelling against things, but they clearly have not thought deeply about the arguments and the points. They seem to just be parroting a very flimsy narrative and ideology. And I think this is real mental laziness, and it's very detrimental for progress, for society in general. And it's this further development of superficiality where people reduce themselves and each other to taglines and slogans, flags, symbols, and even political affiliation. Again, I think this is a very lazy approach, and that it's because those people don't know themselves. They haven't self-reflected, and they haven't taken the time to really ask themselves what they know about the world and how they feel about it. They're just taking somebody else's word for it and grasping onto something to believe in. Something that makes them feel part of something and important. I think that we do want to feel part of something. We do want to recognize our connectivity to things for a number of reasons. There's a survival instinct to be part of a tribe or a community. But also, I think, because we all need frameworks to live within. This is evident in the manifest world, that there are frameworks, structures, and there's a degree of conformity within organisms, within environments, and yet there's also tremendous diversity and uniqueness even within species that are the same. And so I think that this organizing factor actually comes from the quantum field, the unified field, and it comes from deep within us. So we should be looking within to receive that intelligent, organizing guidance. As intellectual creatures, we're somewhat different than trees and birds and other creatures of this world, where we create these artificial kind of environments. And I think they can be guided by a natural intelligence. But we do use our intellect to create beyond what nature creates. So as an extension of ourselves, we fabricate systems such as governments and rules. We create tools, we create languages, and that's fine. That's an outgrowth of and a manifestation of our creativity through our guided by the intellect. And that's perfectly fine. But it needs to be balanced with wisdom, with intuition. I think that when people don't take the time to connect with that inner wisdom, then there is a great risk of feeling this emptiness within, that then people have a tendency to look without, look outside of themselves for meaning, for purpose, for guidance. And we're kind of groomed into this in the familial kind of structure, and then school, and then government, that the authority is outside of us, and we must conform and behave to get our needs met. And I think that the family structure, especially in the West, has lost a lot of its integrity, lost a lot of its value, a lot of its values that are bestowed upon the next generation. So the culture has been so diluted and distracted into a very superficial consumeristic focus. And so now we're seeing also a resurgence of religiosity, where people are turning to religion for the solution, for the guidance. And I think that's a a bit misplaced, because religion is a substitute for a direct connection with the divine, with intuition, with the unified field, with the quantum intelligence that is God. And that's accessible to everyone. It's ever present. So what I think is important is that we each develop our own ethos and our own religion. That is our responsibility as adults, to gather information constantly, and to the degree that we can integrate it. So we shouldn't just shovel as much information as we can get into our brains. We should be always assessing it, comparing it to how we feel about it, what our insight is about it. So maintaining that connection of that inner listening, our gut, our intuition, as we're taking in information. This personal ethos, personal religion is our beliefs, and our beliefs are the thoughts that we continue to think. But we should be able to revise those and update them as we live more life experience and are exposed to new ideas that are at least adjacent to our previous ideas. So we're building this kind of stepping stone and framework, a tree, a gestalt of ideas that fit together. And there may be times when, almost like a bonsai tree, where we prune some of those ideas. And that is fine too. Our brain is actually doing that naturally, where it prunes neural pathways that are not being used and strengthens the ones that are. So I think that this is very, very important. More important than ever before, when we have so much information at our fingertips, and there is a strong likelihood that there are various agendas at work to try and manipulate us and coerce us in different directions. And we individually need to take responsibility to curate that content. Not that we should insulate ourselves from other ideas, because I think that we should test our own rationale and our own logic. But that it's very nuanced. The only way we can really have a good way of assessing that is to be in tune with our inner compass. That's going to be the most effective way of approaching any kind of ideological arguments, is to have that true inner connection with our own rationale. And practicing that. So in our creative expression, in our conversations, in our lifestyle, how we live, what we do each day, what we do for work, having all that have integrity and a cohesiveness. In our self-reflection, we will have insight about those areas that are incongruent. And our body and our mind will often create pain in these areas to bring our attention to them. This is the Jungian shadow work, unconscious material that comes into our awareness when we are ready to look at it, when it's relevant. Otherwise, we would be overwhelmed with it. But our subconscious is wise and protective of us and doesn't allow things into our conscious mind unless there is some kind of adjacent thought that it can utilize to create psychological integration. So maybe something will come up that triggers us. And again, this is something that there's this aversion to, that being triggered is a bad thing, and people should be protected from being triggered. I think that that's very ridiculous and erroneous. Things are not protected in nature. Things are challenged in nature, and that is how, at least based on the kind of survival of the fittest, is how things evolve. I think there is a more complex and nuanced explanation for this evolution that isn't just based on individuals dying out and not procreating. I think that the morphogenic field, or this intelligent substrate of reality, is what enables this evolution. And this is really not my idea. It's bits and pieces that I've put together from numerous things and things that I've read. And it makes a lot of sense to me. It harmonizes in my concept of reality. And I believe it to be true that there is this intelligent field that is constantly offering us opportunities for evolution. And that the collective evolves as the individuals evolve. So again, this is individual responsibility to be evolving and revising our beliefs and our ideas about things, and even going to the point of essentially creating one's own religion, one's own philosophy, one's own structure of a way to live. And I think that one of the reasons this is important for me, I believe, why I think about it a lot, is because of my astrological rising sign being Capricorn, and also that Saturn is highlighted in my chart. It's emphasized. So I observe the structures of reality. I've also felt oppressed by them, and that's just what happens as far as Saturn's influence in somebody's chart. Initially, there's this feeling of oppression, and then as the person integrates it, they learn to embody that and be the structure of one's life. So learning from those lessons of discipline, and then taking on that role in one's life. And this is maturity. This is adulthood. This is seeing things from a bigger perspective and a grander design, a kind of systems theory that is evolving, and does require discipline. It does require self-discipline and focus. It's about making things real and tangible. And there is reward in that. There is a satisfaction in a trajectory and setting goals and seeing progress, and recognizing it within oneself, because knowing that the authority lies within. So it's not about trying to appease other people or satisfy other people, although that can be a personal value. But the ultimate authority is within. This again is something, so if that's the case, if we truly have embodied that authority, we don't need to tell anybody else about it. We're only looking to satisfy that inner authority. So that inner authority is the crystallization, the collection of our personal values and morals. It's our inner North Star. It's how we make decisions. And we revise it, if necessary, when we get to a dead end. If we come across something that challenges us and we're stumped, we're puzzled, there's conflict, there's dysfunction, then that's when we need to pause and look at our map and question ourselves whether we've mistaken the map for the territory or incorrectly created the map. So this map making, I think, is the responsibility of being an adult, is honing a personal ethos, and you could even call it a religion, because I think we should become, to some degree, dogmatic about it, where there's a sturdiness and a resilience that where we're able to withstand the slings and arrows and storms of the world, of other people's opinions. And in each moment, we're going to, again, make a discernment. To what degree am I open to other ideas? Do other ideas threaten my ideas? What are my ideas based on? And can I reach deep inside myself for the greatest honesty I can muster? Because that's what creates a real foundation within us. A foundation for our whole life is knowing ourselves, knowing how we came to certain conclusions, and to be able to back it up. Well, we don't have to, but that's what relationships are based on, is this willingness to have a dialogue, to have our ideas challenged, and when we're confident in that, it's quite easy to be, or it's easier to be undisturbed by other people's opinions that don't align with ours. Or even to be able to take a different stance purely out of curiosity. So to be able to argue a different point. This is a kind of mental flexibility. If we have this internal integrity that is built on the willingness to self-reflect, then we are resilient, and we can listen to other ideas, and we can argue for our own if we deem that something that we want to do. I think that even saying argument is not accurate, and it's not the right approach or attitude, because if the goal is altruistic, that means we want to share with somebody else a better idea, an idea and a concept that actually creates more benefit. And this is why we absolutely need to have an open and free marketplace of ideas, where no ideas cannot be discussed. That doesn't mean that ideas are discussed everywhere. There are appropriate places. I think that we need to consider the concept of consent. We need to really discuss that more, what that means, and how we can utilize it to build greater rapport and to be able to take greater risks in communicating. So when people step into a certain arena, that they're willing to hear ideas that are different than their own. This is, I think, fundamental to Western culture. Without it, we will lose our foundation of what Western culture means and what it's given us. All of the progressive thoughts exist because of that. And we have such a diverse and creative world because of that. The free exchange of ideas and the openness. Something that I've noticed is that when I am feeling oppressed by other ideologies and dogmas and things, when I've lost my own sureness and lost my own personal discipline, I don't feel inspired. I don't feel alive, and I lose my willpower, my drive and enthusiasm to create and to participate. And it's only when I come back to myself, to my values, and believing in them, that excitement and enthusiasm is rekindled. And I think about, again, this is very Saturnian, Capricornian, is work ethic. And this is something that can't really, I think it can be taught, but mostly by example. In examining the people that inspire us and understanding or trying to understand their motivations, we can consider why we're inspired by somebody and what is it that we want to do that's similar. But we should always come back to our values and find those specific values that are being activated. Because we may be inspired by somebody, but there's things that we don't really like, and that may kind of set up a inner conflict that is not easy to resolve. We shouldn't be trying to copy other people. To whatever degree that they inspire us, we need to reflect on what specifically is it that resonates with us. And this coming back to ourselves and noticing our own values is how we strengthen them. So we can use the world, we can observe other people and other people's values and practices and discipline and ethic and works, but we should always come back to the specifics of what about any of that excites us. And then as we connect with that, we will feel the excitement and we'll overcome the inertia and the resistance that is ubiquitous with life. Life is all about overcoming that inertia. I think on a very basic level, it's hunger, survival. Just those basic functions that have motivated most of life, just to survive. But as human beings, we want to kind of climb up this Maslow's hierarchy of needs and have these peak experiences. However, it's still, those peak experiences are going to be, they've got to be our own. There's too many people that are chasing after what other people have defined as peak experiences and either fail at them or have that experience, but it doesn't satisfy. I think we want to blaze our own trail, and it may look similar to somebody else's, but we need to keep our eye on our own inner compass and really be focused on the nuances and subtleties of our own discernment. So this is how we overcome the resistance and the inertia, is finding our own nuanced approach to those things that inspire us. Our power is within us. It's in the present moment, and reminding ourselves of our personal ethos, which is our authenticity, and it's what we think is good. That doesn't. We don't need to convince other people that we are good. If we have a clarity about that, it becomes much easier, and it can become effortless when we're just focused on aligning with ourselves, our own values, our own morality, our own work ethic, and it becomes this quest to know ourselves better and to live in alignment with that, to live according to our own morality. I think the people that are inspiring, that we look up to and admire, are those people that have done the work or have a great clarity about who they are, and they lock onto that and they're focused on that. I think this is embodiment, and this is what we're all reaching for, is this sureness about ourselves, this confidence. And there are people that are very confident and very unusual, and those are often the successful people. They can withstand criticism. It doesn't distract them from their goals and their practices and their lifestyle. They make nuanced adjustments based on their own self-assessment. And often the more creative that is, more innovative it is, the more criticism they may receive. But we have to decide. We have to make a determination at some point whether we're willing to sacrifice ourselves to be liked, to be accepted by other people. Although ironically, when you have great integrity, you do become appealing to many people. So there has to be this willingness to break away from the norm and consensus-based reality. And during that breaking away, there may be a lot of hostility. There may be a lot of attempts to bring one back into conformity. But if one persists in following their own inner guidance, then eventually they become a leader, and people are drawn to that person. So again, I think this is individuation, this is our purpose, and this is maturity and evolution. So much of my time and energy goes into this, and my application of it has certainly been variable, where I doubt myself. I'm very hesitant to just latch on to any ideology, but there certainly has been times of feeling that the power is outside of myself, and I'm unsure about what I should do, what I'm about. So that's even what I'm doing now in this kind of exploration and testing of my own values, my own thoughts, and putting them out in this way is a test, because even the thought of having other people scrutinize it does challenge me to a clarity and a focus about those very things. I think that's all I'll say about that today. Thanks for watching.